I want to welcome everyone to the 2022 Food Service Summit. I'm Tiffany Leon, and I am the Assistant Director of Training and Professional Programs at FAIR. So without further ado, let's start with why this matters. I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. So let's start with Timothy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Timothy Lett. I am a vegan college student with food allergies. I'm currently allergic to eggs, dairy products, nuts, tree nuts, sesame, and a few legumes, as well as some environmental allergens. I maintain a baking and vegan inspiration page called Timmy D Bakes on Instagram and Twitter. And I just basically share new opportunities to try new foods and to give inspiration to other people to try new foods, even though options may be limited. Happy to be here today.
That's awesome. We'll have to give you a follow. You can share your handle. Is it just at Timothy Bakes?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, sounds good. I'll give you a follow. All right, let's move over to Marlo. Marlo, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Marlo Fox, and I have almost 10-year-old twins, and my daughter Bailey has severe food allergies. All nuts, tree nuts, sesame, chickpea, pea protein, chestnuts, coconut, and environmental allergies, animal allergies, and she also has epilepsy. So I deal with this every day, and I'm a warrior mom out to just protect my daughter every day.
You really are. We've worked together in the past, and I've already heard some of your stories, and I'm happy that you're here to share your experiences with the audience. Let's move over to Monica, who's another food allergy warrior mom. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Monica, Auslander, Moreno, and I'm a registered dietitian based in Miami in private practice. And I have a nearly 3-year-old son with multiple food allergies, sesame, cashew, pistachio, and we were talking before, we're not really sure about walnut, pecan, or macadamia, but presumed guilty until innocence is proven.
Yeah, we'll have to stay tuned to see what happens there. And last but certainly not least, Jayden Vogel.
Hi, my name is Jayden. I'm a junior at the University of Arizona, and I'm allergic to walnuts and pecans. I used to be allergic to peanuts as a kid as well, but I grew out of that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you all the panelists for joining. Let's jump right in. Let's start with Marlo. Marlo, can you share a time when food service staff went the extra mile to accommodate you and your daughter or your family with food allergies?
Sure. I have so many stories, but the most recent was this past summer. We went away with another family to a resort, and I specifically planned it because we had some of our safe restaurants in the area, but it was breakfast time, and it was there was a restaurant within the resort. Everyone was going there, and I had rushed down there before because I thought we were going to have a different plan. And I'm trying to, my plan is to get Bailey to be able to eat with us and have a normal meal. After, the chef came out, and this was an exceptional human being. He gave me lots of time. He pulled out all of the products, the boxes, showed me the labels. We talked it through. He was so kind. After, I would say, a good 20 minutes, we couldn't find anything that we were really both, we couldn't find anything safe for her that we felt was okay. So I always come prepared. I brought, safe pancake mix, syrup, and he said, and oils. And he said, bring everything down. I'm going to make it for her so she can eat. So I will forever be grateful to him because it was all prepared. I had done everything behind the scenes. So Bailey didn't feel, she didn't feel, out of place, for lack of a better word. When she got there, her meal was served just like everyone else. So That was one time I can think of.
That's such a great experience. I'm glad you shared that. Timothy, do you have a time when food service staff went the extra mile for you?
Definitely. I think living in the deep South and being vegan is very hard as is, but I went to a vegan restaurant a couple weeks ago in Montgomery, Alabama. And if you're unfamiliar with vegan foods, a lot of them do contain nuts. And I had talked to the owner of the restaurant for about 20 minutes, discussing just the different things that I'm allergic to and the cleaning processes that they go through in order to make sure that there's no nut contamination. And they even looked up hospitals with me in proximity because I was out of town by myself on a work trip, and there were so few options. And it was a good meal. I was safe and I was very comfortable after they spent the time with me to go over, their cleaning processes and stuff.
Wow. Yeah, it does sound like they went above and beyond to accommodate you. That's great. What was the meal? What was the dish?
I had a vegan Philly cheesesteak.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good. Monica, do you want to share a time when this food service staff went the extra mile or?
Sure. So, sesame is particularly hard to avoid in restaurant settings just because sesame oil has a very high cross contact, and people don't realize about sesame oil, and they don't realize that sesame is in tahini and hummus and other types of dips and spread. But my family is Jewish, and there's an Israeli restaurant in town that I'm just like dying to try. And the owner, Tessa, just went out of her way to do a whole like sesame education for her staff before we were coming in, and she knows all about it, and she has 4 kids herself, and it was just, we felt very safe being there. And to cross contact, I would never expect a Middle Eastern restaurant to do that for us, but I kind of happened to know her, and I thought, let's give it a go. And it was really touching because it's nice to be able to not have to write off all Middle Eastern restaurants for the rest of time.
Yeah. So I guess the same thing goes with vegan restaurants. Timothy just explained that a lot of vegan recipes do contain nuts. It's just, it's very ingrained in plant-based and plant-forward items. And so the same, the theme is still there. Jordan, so dining out can be challenging. How do you prepare for that? What research do you do ahead of time? Do you have any tips for food service operators when they're working with guests with food allergies?
Yeah, I would definitely say something that's super helpful for me is when it's written down on the menu, when there's little, symbols or asterisks like this may contain this or this may contain that, because I feel like as a college student, it's so hard for burnout. You get burnout when you have to talk about oh, I have a nut allergy, and everyone, you're meeting new friends all the time, and then they have all these questions about it and stuff too. So it is nice to have just a visual. I think that's always been super helpful for me. It's just to have a visual note on the menu that there is food allergies.
Do you find that it's becoming more common that restaurants will note the foods that are the ingredients that are in the menu, especially when it comes to the top 9?
I mean, I've definitely seen it more as I've grown older, but one thing that was really cool was actually when I was in Italy a couple of years ago, that's what all the restaurants did. So the number 8 signified that it had tree nuts in it. And that was super helpful, especially being out of the country. It's not necessarily American medical access there either. So it was really helpful to have that as well.
Yeah, that is helpful. It's nice to know that even abroad you were able to dine out. We did get a question from the audience, and I'm going to pose this to Marlo and Monica as the food allergy warrior moms. How do you get over the fear of taking your child with a food allergy out to a restaurant to eat safely?
You never get over the fear. It's for me, it always hovers. But I really do my due diligence. If I cannot see the label on whatever we're going to eat for her, if I can't see anything, we don't eat there. And honestly, sometimes we end up bringing our own food into a restaurant so she can have her meal and we can actually eat at a different restaurant. So, and when we do decide that we feel like it's a safe risk, as long as we have her EpiPens, which we always have, if it's a safe risk, we will take it.
Anything to add, Monica?
Well, when she said you don't ever get over it, that's true, because the lurking risk is there. I think it's a very personal decision of risk tolerance, if and when and how you choose to dine out with food allergies. And obviously it's very dependent on how comfortable and how well, these particular places. For me, especially having been holed up in COVID with a baby for so long, I was really, really, really gung-ho to get out there. And so I kind of, and I just, my eye, because he's little, he's not a baby anymore, but he's not even 3. And I just hope for the best. And that's really, obviously knowing what I know as a dietitian and allergy parent, is obviously helpful, but I know things happen, accidents happen. And I look at his food, I kind of, poke around in it, and I just hope for the best.
Timothy, when did you, I'll reframe this. When did you get over the fear of dining out safely? I know you just mentioned going on a work trip and dining out alone. When did this change for you?
I think it kind of wanes and waxes. Depends greatly on the restaurant, if you're familiar with it, or if there's an option that is safe consistently. I think I do stick to the same types of meals, and if that isn't available, then I'm usually a lot more nervous about trying a new food or a new place. But I think it's all about communication, making sure that they understand your allergies and the severity of them. And if there's not an option, then trying with the chef to see if they can do something.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Jayden?
No, I definitely think that's very true. I'm such a foodie. I love trying new foods. So that can be really difficult for me, but I agree. Everything's about communication, with the restaurant and with the staff there. And, I've always been, better be safe than sorry. So if I don't know and there's not communication there, or I at least feel like they don't know what they're talking about, I won't get it. So that's so I agree with him.
When in doubt, don't eat it.
Right. Because some people can act like they they have a confused facial expression, and they don't really know what they're talking about, or, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just not even gonna try.
Yeah.
I'd rather be safe than sorry. So
yeah. So before we got on, we were, I was introducing the panelists to each other. We were talking about Bailey's upcoming birthday. Have food allergies affected choices or events in your life, such as birthday parties, holiday travel? Marlo, you want to share some of your experiences?
Yes, it impacts everything, especially those special events. When Bailey when she's invited just to a friend's birthday party, I will connect with the mother. I have to know what is being served. I will always bake my own cupcakes for her, order special pizza that I know is safe. I will actually, I ask, it becomes awkward and uncomfortable when you don't know the mom, but I need to know either, will she be serving nuts? What is she serving? Cross-contamination? I go through a list of things, and, it's hard. It's also hard because I am planning their birthday, and Bailey has a twin brother who doesn't have any allergies. So to balance that is challenging, but we are planning to bring a few kids to Great Wolf Lodge. And I've called ahead. I've talked to the kitchen manager, the chef, and so it's just lots of research and calling ahead. I'm the mother that is not willing to take a risk unless I'm 100%, not 100. You can never be 100%, but until I really feel comfortable. After I talk with them over and over again. So It's all about planning. I mean, I'm going to be planning to take her foods, her medications. Bailey takes special medicine. We order with an ice cream. We order a lot of our food. So she takes, we order our ice cream from New York so she could take her medicine. I have to call ahead and make sure they can carry her, keep her ice cream. And it's just a whole process. And you have to just, takes time, very time consuming.
Yeah. Timothy, what about you? Have food allergies affected choices or events in your life?
Oh, for sure. I think every birthday has been an interesting challenge. Here lately, I've been baking my own cakes for my birthday. Just because my grandparents and my mother used to take care of that in the past. But it comes a certain point when you do want to like deviate from the norm and try something else, try something new. When I was growing up, my parents would usually prepare for parties by telling people my food allergies. I would have a slip of paper, a letter that they printed out, and would keep it along with me, give it out whenever it was needed. Just because sometimes it was hard for me to explain, and it was just easier to just give a piece of paper and just, here you go. You can't say you don't have it, and it's written proof that you know my allergies now. So yeah, I think navigating adulthood with food allergies is definitely a different process than when I was younger. I think that traveling and going different areas where I've never been before has been a bit challenging. Just trying to inform people, so they realize the severity of my food allergies, because I don't think it's every day that you meet a person with this long list of food allergies and dietary restrictions.
Yeah. Abigail shared this in the Q&A box. I think she may have meant to share it in the chat, but she has food allergies as well. When you let people know about your food allergy, do you find there are some people that respond with something along the lines of, oh, can you eat or drink it and let me see what happens? It's so frustrating that people do not take dietary allergies seriously. It definitely can be
story of our lives. I'm sure everyone has had that experience.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of ignorance in food allergy, and that's one of the things I'd like to do more professionally in schools is educate not only faculty. Everyone thinks that the responsibility of food allergies, the teachers have to keep them safe. It's really the other parents. For me, we yesterday we had trunk or treat at my son's school, which is parents come and open the trunks of their car and decorate it for trick-or-treating. And because at my behest, there was an email sent that was like, no nuts, no sesame. That's our policy in the school. It's our policy in the school. And I had to take the morning off because I'm like, I know how this is going to go, and cancel my morning and go and help the two poor teachers with the 18 2-year-olds, right? And grabbing everything and there's nuts and stuff and sesame stuff and everywhere. Like, people just don't know. And, it's really, we should be angry, but we should be angry that we didn't have food allergy education as students in school, and that our parents weren't educated and we're not educated. It's not the school's fault, it's our society's fault. So as a dietitian, I would love to be brought into schools and teach everyone, not just the two teachers who have to wrangle 18 2-year-olds together, teach everyone, faculty, parents, caregivers, siblings, about food allergy and safety and cross contact and everything about that. Sorry you didn't ask me that question, but
thank you for jumping in.
Slide on in there.
Thank you for jumping in. What I was going to say was that a lot of children can be, like, this example that she shared could be an example of bullying, and I think Lisa brought that up in the chat, and we've seen reports that 1 in 3 children can be bullied because of their food allergies. We've heard stories of people crumbling peanut cookies on a table. Just like different sorts around Halloween. We mentioned the trick or treat, and so it can be really harmful in that sense. Yeah.
I haven't. Luckily, that hasn't. I mean, Miss Fox can probably opine more on that with older children. That doesn't really happen yet in the 2 to 3-year-old set. They just don't even know. But that the psychological impact of food allergies is something that I'm sure FAIR does a lot of work with and unpacks a lot.
Yeah, our October webinar was focus on the psychosocial aspect of food allergy and managing it through different life stages. Is there any experiences that you want to share as growing up with food allergies, Jayden?
Yeah, definitely. I was just gonna say, when Monica talked about the psychological effects of it, when I was in elementary school, I had to sit on a different side of the table than everyone else, and I had to have a placemat. So that's how they, regulated that I wouldn't be cross-contaminated. And although that's very safe and that's a good alternative, the fact that I wasn't able to, make friends as a 5-year-old or be with my preschool friends in elementary school, and I felt so singled out, and I just remember feeling so bad about myself and so excluded from all the other kids. Luckily, my mom is also a super allergy mom, and she got that. She went to the board, she went to everyone, got that taken care of, which wasn't fair. But so it was just really interesting to see how much that has affected me. And even we were talking about birthday parties, and I would just always want the cake to have a birthday cake so bad at other people's birthday parties, but I would just say I'm not hungry, it's okay, I don't want anything, because I just didn't want to have to explain I'm actually allergic to tree nuts or peanuts or whatever. So that's definitely a big thing for me that was difficult to kind of get over and stuff. So it's different. I can see how much that kind of affected my life now that I'm older.
Yeah, you mentioned disclosure fatigue. We're going to be addressing that in the first session tomorrow at 1:00. We have 2 professors from the Clarkson University who are going to be reporting on their findings from a qualitative study. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for that promotion. I hope everyone joins tomorrow. But you're right, and you may have experienced this when you got to school, but you had to tell your roommate, you told your RA. You told your professor, perhaps you had to register at the health center, you had to tell dining services. And you may just have experienced this disclosure fatigue as you mentioned. I think Timothy mentioned this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's see here. We have some questions in the chat. I'm curious to know how many chefs you have encountered that are not respectful of your food allergies. Let's start with Timothy.
One immediately comes to mind. It was a few years ago before I went vegan. We visited this place. I don't know if they're universal, but it's called Mugshots. It's a bar and grill restaurant in Mobile, and we didn't do a lot of research. I don't recall. I think we had just gotten in from out of town, and it was late at night. It was the only place that was open, and we were really hungry. We found out that they use peanut oil, and we sat outside because sometimes peanut oil can be aerated and cause issues. And they weren't helpful at all in giving us options. I remember the owner came out also, or the operator came out also, and he was well, best we can do is tortilla chips that are store-bought. So that was a non-ideal experience.
Anyone want to add something else where their food allergies were not respected or their requests weren't respected?
I was
Go ahead. You're good.
Go ahead, Marlo.
Quickly, we were at one of our safe restaurants when we were on vacation, Burton's, where we go. That's our go-to, one of our go-tos. And there was a manager there who I didn't know and just totally didn't write anything down. Just was so disrespectful. And this was a real shock to me because this restaurant is known to be allergy friendly. So we left, and then I walked out and started to go somewhere else. And I'm like, you know what? No. This is one of the reasons why we planned the trip in this location. So I went back in, spoke to the head manager, and she was very apologetic. And I told her about this person and the experience, and ended up eating there because I had to speak up, and I did. And so it was very disappointing.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to go back in and you felt like you could advocate for yourself and for your daughter. So in that sense, I applaud you, my food allergy warrior mom.
Thank you.
Jayden, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, one time I was in Boston with my family, and I was with my mom, and so she's very adamant about, we always have to ask, we always have to tell them about your food allergy. So we did, and it was just a pizza place, I believe, just in downtown Boston. But so they were so we, told them about my food allergy, and they're like, oh yeah, you should be good to go. And then I did end up having an allergic reaction there from the pesto about the pine nuts, because it was like cross-contaminated with tree nuts, the pesto that they use. So even like just those little details can make such a big difference of what you're eating and what you're not eating.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's the details, it's trace amounts, it's things that you may not even see. You don't necessarily see something that's on a knife when it's sliced through a sandwich, but if it's used on something else, then it may not be safe. So you're right, it's all in the details. We have one more question. I'm going to pose this to Monica because of your dietitian background, and you don't have to answer specifically, but just broadly. With so many food allergies, how do you meet micronutrient needs that you may be missing from foods that you have to avoid?
I wouldn't say it's easy, but this is what we do. We're troubleshooters, and we love to put together pieces of a clinical puzzle to what we say liberalize intake and make, improve quality of. Obviously, this depends on, someone's food allergies, plus, styles of eating, like plant, and fusing it all together. Enjoyable, affordable, cultural. In our case, if you're only allergic to sesame, cashew, pistachio, and perhaps walnuts, et cetera, it's easy. I mean, there's really very little risk of micronutrient or macronutrient deficiency. As your list grows longer and longer and longer, and substitutes have to be made, we kind of globally, put our hands into our Mary Poppins bag of nutrition and think, okay, what are the foods if someone's allergic to, egg and they are plant forward? Sorry to single out Mr. Lett, okay, what other sources of protein can we, complete proteins that have all the amino acids that we need to access? How often, and, can we add those in and get very creative with substitutes? And then of course we always have to play this delicate dance of like, are you comfortable with this as far as the client? Is your family comfortable with this? Is this affordable? Is this realistic? Very rarely do we really require supplementation unless there's like a very big concern of a risk deficiency or a documented risk. But that's honest. Like when you asked the question, I kind of was like, oh, it's easy, no problem. Like we got like for a dietitian, I know for most people there might not be a clear, easy answer, but for us, like piece of allergy friendly cake.
Yeah, but there are so many pieces of the puzzle, as you mentioned, affordability,
especially with children. Yeah. And with children as well, it's not about what they want to eat. It's like, well, do I want to make that? Because I'm the parent,
Right.
So.
Right. Yes. Timings, scheduling, will the kid, if you go through all the trouble to make it, are they going to eat it? I'm going through that with
and it's funny with the degree of privilege involved is really interesting, because even with our, like we only have these 3 allergens. There was a time we were discussing when we thought he was allergic to every single tree nut. So for me, it was we actually thought he was also allergic to sunflower seeds. So we couldn't do sun butter. So I had to find poppy seed butter and pumpkin seed butter, and they were exorbitantly expensive. And I was like, oh, and peanut butter is super cheap. And I'm like, this isn't fair. Like I could be buying 3 like Costco peanut butters, which I really miss myself, but no, I have to buy $20 jars of pumpkin seed butter. Like this is ridiculous, because every recipe on Instagram of every dietitian influencer calls for peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter. So, and that was just one little tip of the iceberg with food allergies and substitutions that particularly affected my pantry and my wallet.
Yeah. Do you find, and I'll ask Timothy, do you find that you have trouble meeting some of your needs following the restricted diet because of choice as a vegan, but also because of your dietary restrictions as it relates to food allergies?
I get this question a good bit, and I had the opportunity to study plant-based nutrition at Cornell last semester. And I don't feel that any of my nutritional needs aren't being met. I think there are so many good substitutions out there for proteins and stuff like that, where um, some vegans would get them from nuts or something like that. And I do have allergies to some legumes, so I do have to avoid others. But yeah, there's always something new to try, plant-based wise.
That's such a good attitude. That's such a good attitude. All right, so let's pivot for a little bit. I just want to, we talked about some good experiences that you've had. We've talked about some experiences where your food allergies weren't, respected. Has there ever been a time where you needed to use your emergency medication to treat your daughter or yourself outside of the home? And if yes, can you explain the situation? And I didn't ask you guys ahead of time, so I'm not sure who's a yes here. Have you ever had to use epinephrine outside the home? Jayden,
Thank goodness. No, but I have, we always have it on us, and the other day now we have 2 kids and we're rushing to meet someone else. And like, we're going to a park. So it wasn't like a food event, but we realized we left the EpiPen bag at home and I was like shaking on the way there, and we were already too far. We were already late, and like, we'd be like, okay, so like, just make sure he doesn't pick up anything or eat it, cause you know how toddlers are. So, and then there was an incident with, I mentioned this in my fair talk, but a brand of sunflower butter that is contacted with tahini from their lines. And that caused a lip swelling, which if there had also been tongue swelling, I would have given epi. But when I arrived at the school, it was only the lips, and we gave Zyrtec. And so we've had one near experience, and just one time I left the bag at home. But I'm sure this happens to everybody, like Miss Fox. As your kids get older and older and older, more things happen.
Jayden,
Yes.
you look like you want to jump in. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have twice. One was at school and one was actually out of the country in the Cayman Islands when we were at a beach bar kind of luau situation with my family. So I was in the Cayman Islands, and there was a rum cake, and it said obviously, again, like asking, is this safe? Yeah. Does it have nuts in it? And they actually had the box, and they were reading the box, and they were like, no, this does not have nuts in it. In the finest of print, it said, except this kind of flavor of rum cake it was. And then my mom turned the box over, and it was that flavor. So there was also one hospital on the whole island. So we drove 45 minutes. Thank goodness I had my EpiPen, and I just administered my EpiPen before we went to the hospital. But my immunologist, my allergist, he always suggests that you go to the hospital afterwards. So that was a crazy, crazy time.
Certainly not how you expected to experience your vacation.
Right. Yeah.
Just want some dessert.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I think when I was talking about Italy, it was such a different change than going to this place. So it was super cool to see just kind of the improvement in foreign countries, and how they accommodate like tourists and stuff like that. I think is really cool.
Yeah. Just talking about travel, and I don't have any questions planned specifically about travel, but when you're talking about going out of the country, it's always important to be aware of what allergens they do label for on packaging, because in the US, it's the top 8, and then starting in January, it will be 9. But in Canada, they have different regulations, and in the EU, they have different regulations. And so in Japan, they have different regulations. So just making sure that when you are going abroad, you're aware of, and I know you mentioned menus, that's totally different than what would be on the package. But yeah, just keeping that in mind because all the regulations are different. Yeah. Timothy, anything you want to add there? Have you ever had to use your epinephrine while dining out?
I have actually never had to administer my epi. I came very close about a year and a half ago. I consumed about a dollop of hummus, and of course, me not understanding words, I didn't know that tahini was sesame seeds at first. It's literally pure sesame seeds. At first, I tried just like a fingerful and was like, wow, this is really spicy. Of course, it wasn't spice, it was an allergic reaction. But I was home and my dad was like, hey, that isn't that isn't a good sign. And I ended up taking a Benadryl and getting checked out by the doctor, and I was okay. But it could have gone a lot worse.
Yeah. And it's important to note here that a past reaction is not going to necessarily predict a future reaction. And what happened to you may not happen to Jayden, may not happen to Bailey, may not happen to, I don't know your son's name, Monica.
Jackal.
Jackal. Yeah. So what happens, it's individual to individual, it's all going to be different. And so making sure that you have your medication on hand, emergency, and those, antihistamines, whatever your doctor is prescribing for your case, in the case of an emergency. All right, so we only have a few minutes left. Let's end, we have time for a couple more questions. So I know we already talked about the vegan Philly cheesesteak, but if you had a wish list, what would be your go-to meal that you wish you saw more on restaurant menus that could accommodate you or your family's allergies?
I would probably say a pizza that isn't like a small personal pizza. I feel like a lot of restaurants nowadays do have like a lot of pizza places do have like small personal size pizza, but I want a big pizza that I can eat with other people. That isn't just, thin as a piece of paper. And, I want it to be exciting and flavorful. Yeah, I want a big pizza.
That sounds great. That sounds like a great wish list item. What about you, Marlo? Does Bailey have any wish list items, or you have any wish lists?
It's more like my wish list. I wish there were more salad dressings, breads, desserts.
Some of like the meal accompaniments. Yeah.
Yes.
So it wouldn't just be like a baked chicken and like broccoli. You want her to have some bread to go with it, or a good salad dressing.
Yes.
Okay. That seems like an easy ask.
It's not.
Well, we have some food service operators on this presentation and are listening in on the next couple of days. So hopefully they're taking notes and can accommodate you in the future.
That'd be great.
What about you, Jayden? Any wish list items?
Mine is probably like a really good pastry that I can feel safe eating when you go to like a big bakery and there's all these pastries and muffins and like monkey bread. I love monkey bread, but I would never be able, I just don't feel comfortable taking a pastry item from anywhere unless I see a label. So I'd probably say just a big table of pastries that I can just munch on.
That also sounds delicious. So we have pastries, we have a good salad and some bread, and we have a pizza. What else are we adding to our meal here?
I love Jayden's big table of pastries. I'll have that any day with you. I'm here for the appetizers because they're always like sesame crusted tuna and hummus or it's like fried calamari. And I'm like, okay, how about crudité? Just like a bunch of cut vegetables, which tend to be pretty safe for everybody. And, maybe I know this isn't, top 9 for everybody, but for me, because selfish, something that's not hummus or ahi tuna or fried. So like for me, it would be guacamole or like a yogurt based dip, and obviously would declare if someone's allergic to avocados or, contains dairy, and there could be, a plant-based one, but I'm here for the appetizers. And instead of, nut butters, I think maybe I'm not an economist, but if we could drive down the price somehow of sunflower butter and pumpkin seed butter and include those, and instead of, nut butters and cooking and baking in restaurants, that would be really lovely.
What does poppy seed butter taste like? I don't
like ground up poppy seeds, like
okay.
Really good. And the only reason it wasn't that weird to me is because there's a pastry called rugula, which is like a Jewish pastry we eat on a certain holiday, and it's basically poppy seed jam. And I'm like, oh, this is like not sweet poppy seed jam. And I happened to like find it online. I knew this can exist, and I happened to find it online, and it's $1 million, but it was quite good. We don't need it anymore, but I would still eat it.
All right, good to know. I don't think I've ever had poppy seed butter.
You now will. I bet you're inspired to try it.
I'm not gonna pay $26 for it.
No, it's not $26, but like it was like like it was a lot. No, and like, you know, think about the portion over time. You're like using and using and using.
Yes, of course.
Treat yourself.
Of course. We'll have, as Timothy said, there are so many new things to try. So I guess I should never say never. We'll put it on one of my lists in the future. All right, with only 3 minutes left, we'll just do one more, around the horn. Is there anything else that you would like to share about your experience with food allergies or your child's experience with food allergies that will be helpful to food service staff? And we'll start with Marlo.
I would, just a few things. Empathy, time, know your foods, know your third-party vendors, maybe just for, a specific, maybe for your most popular foods for kids or people with allergies. We go with the same meal usually every restaurant. Know your oils, maybe take a picture of some labels and have a booklet, so families can take a look at the labels. Know what you put in the fryer, the fryers, because there are hidden allergens. My daughter cannot have French fries from the same fryer, something that had falafel in it, because she's allergic to chickpea. It's really about allergen protocols, training your staff, knowing your foods, knowing where you get your foods from. That would be my wish list.
All good points. And FAIR does have some resources on our website. I won't take a lot of time to talk about them, but we do offer food service training for staff, or we have a menu transparency training if anyone was interested in taking that. You can reach out to education@foodallergy.org and we'll give you the details. Timothy, what about you? Anything else you want to share with food service staff that may be on the call?
I think knowing your food is definitely the biggest, because as a restaurant, people come in all the time asking questions about the food, asking for suggestions, etc. I think it's really important to know what's in your food, because that could be life or death for somebody like me. I also think that a great opportunity for restaurants would be to add, a section in your menu that just says, tell us about your food allergies. Like, we want to hear them in order to make sure that you're, properly taken care of and that communication is there.
I have experienced more recently, and I don't know if this is pre or post pandemic or has nothing to do with it, but more wait staff, more servers are asking right before you take your order, are there any food allergies in the group? I have seen a more proactive approach versus waiting for the customer or guest to disclose. So I have seen that change. But there was a study done, I think it was 2021 or published done in 2020, published 2021, where they, tallied up number of reactions in restaurants, dining out. And I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but the number when the food allergies were disclosed on the label, and there was a number where they were disclosed to wait staff, but it was drastically less when it was disclosed on the label, on the menu, and it was disclosed to the server. So I don't want to give you the wrong numbers, but it was a lot less when the communication worked both ways, when the restaurant told you what was in the foods, and when the guest did disclose to the server. Monica, anything else you want to share?
I was thinking about this question, and remember, it's called food service, beverage, and hospitality industry. So in order to provide a hospitable environment, and you want to make someone feel safe, welcome, taken care of, and you want them to come back and spread the good word about your company or establishment, it would stand to reason that you'd want to prevent a life-threatening event. So, with a little bit of, education with what is available through FAIR and, ServSafe, which I'm a food service professor also. So I'm a ServSafe certified teacher, there is some food allergy training. It's not as involved as I would like it to be, but in food service, just going that extra day and taking a staff training and, testing staff and doing case studies and role models and, really testing it out in real time and shadowing and observing on the floor can prevent some really nasty stuff from happening.
Yeah, it's so true. Jayden, anything else before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would just say something that's super important for me is just clear, like I said earlier, clear communication and accommodation is so important. I loved the idea of the book, Marlo, but for me, like personally, I would be scared to like go ask for a book just as I'm being older and, it's not as like cool or whatever, and just the burnout stuff. So like, I just don't think it's that hard to disclose what foods have what allergies on a menu. And I think it's such an easy fix, and it makes people feel more welcome to discuss it with their wait staff as well. So just clear communication all around is really important.
Great. Well, thank you guys for all. That's all we have time for. Thank you to all of our panelists and for those that join this session. Be sure to join us for our next session, which is called Embrace a Strong Culture of Food Safety. Thank you guys, and see you in the next session.